Welcome to The Silent Why, and to a very special bonus episode.
As you may know, Claire and I'm Chris by the way, are on a podcast mission to explore 101 different types of loss to see if hope can exist in everyone.
Last week we spoke to Laura Burns about her experience of being diagnosed with alopecia in her early 20s.
And while we recorded that in-person interview, her husband and our friend John, who we knew even before Laura came into his life, was sat there watching and listening.
Not in a creepy way. So we thought, why not bring him in on the conversation and ask him what it was like to meet and date somebody with alopecia. Plus, we really wanted to hear his side of the wig flying off story that Laura told us.
If you haven't listened to the last episode, you probably want to zip back and hear that first. Then come with us as we chat to John and Laura.
It's worth noting that this is not a couple that have just had to deal with alopecia as a diagnosis. Laura's had brain surgery more than once, and John, as you're going to hear about in this episode, was born with renal failure and had a kidney transplant. How they are and how they just see life, despite their health challenges, is truly inspiring.
So, here we go. Bonus episode time. And over to you, Mr. Burns.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm Laura's husband. I live in the Black Country in the West Midlands also.
And this is great to have this conversation with you, because in the last episode, this is a bonus addition to hearing your wife talk about 15 years of alopecia. So I guess just to get us going, you were listening to her talking about that, obviously not a new subject for you. So just being part of that, hearing Laura talking about it with a microphone in front of her, what was that experience like for you as her protective husband?
Yeah, quite a strange experience, I would say. Yeah, obviously I've sort of heard Laura speak to me quite a number of times about her experience and journey with alopecia, and I know it's sort of not been an easy one, but at the same time I find it quite difficult to imagine her feeling anxious or sort of worried about those sort of, insecurities, perhaps because, she's such a positive person. So it was quite it was interesting.
And like Laura said, it's really hard when you're younger and something happens physically especially to have that confidence that you'll meet somebody that will love you despite that. So I think you, John, are one of the things that every woman hopes is out there, is a man that loves you for who you are. I love that you guys have found each other because you're just the most gorgeous couple. And even when you were just talking, Laura was just looking at you with such love and smile. Makes my heart warm. Anyway, yeah, and you're here with us. And we're so grateful for, your relationship and what you've been able to share. Because I know you've had your health issues as well. So Laura has done the same for you as you have for her. So tell us a bit about what it was like. I was going to say when Laura first told you about alopecia, but also about the wig moment that we heard on the last episode when it flew off and you weren't expecting it. What was that like from your side?
Well, obviously I'd known about the wig for quite a long time at this point, and I sort of there was various times where we spent together where I would feel quite frustrated on her behalf because I had a feeling that she was uncomfortable. I obviously understood, like wearing a woolly hat all day is not a comfortable thing, and at some point you're going to get itchy, let alone indoors with the heating on. And so I was kind of desperate for her to sort of take it off and feel comfortable around me. That was sort of my first sort of feelings around it. And this sort of just it was just a bizarre thing that happened. I think I went to put my arm around her, and realised how smooth I am. Not. And clearly in doing that has dislodged the wig considerably. And it's never happened since. I understand it never happened before. And as Laura said, I've been with her when we've been out walking in quite some gales and things like that. They do not just blow off. They're very sturdy. So it was a funny thing. But I remember when it happened, I knew immediately that she'd be upset. And my sort of first thoughts were really to try and reassure her, because I just realised, and I didn't really know what to say at that point other than sort of just to say, it's okay. I know about this, this is not a shock to me, and this is absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about it, and I don't want you to be wearing it in the house all day with central heating on. But it took a little bit longer before she was able to sort of do that around me on a consistent basis. I'm sure she was sort of checking to see what my reactions were, but I think as she sort of realised that it really didn't bother me, and it didn't, that she was able to sort of be more comfortable around me.
rewind, though, to a time where you didn't know her as well as you did at that point in person. And Laura mentioned the conversation about getting together, first of all, meeting online and false advertising. So, on reflection, how do you feel like you handled, finding out about Laura, all of Laura, online before meeting in person? How was that experience for you?
So I've had my own health challenges throughout the entirety of my life. I was used to those feelings of insecurity from my own side of things and the worries of not possibly finding someone to accept you. Essentially, when we exchanged numbers after meeting online, Laura commented on what my profile picture was. And long story short, I had a picture of a Superman on my WhatsApp profile picture.
Talk about false advertising.
Yeah, exactly. And she asked me a question, why have you got that? That's a really strange thing to have. But growing up, I had a lot of health difficulties, and I was obsessed with Superman, Christopher Reeve and Superman. And I think it was just because he was so far removed from sort of, he was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be Superman, fly around everywhere, saving the world. That's just my he was just my hero when I was a small child. And sort of at a point in my life, I had a kidney transplant and experienced a lot of difficulties after that. And I remember someone having a conversation with me who didn't know that I had this sort of obsession with Superman as a child, who said to me, you can be Superman, you can do what you want. You don't need to worry about your health and the anxieties that you feel. You have that permission. And a bit of a bizarre statement, but at the same time, it was weird because they didn't know about that. And so I had this WhatsApp picture, and very early on, I just explained to her about it. Led to a conversation about my health. I was so worried about feeling accepted that when she told me about her situation, it didn't bother me. I was quite surprised myself that it didn't bother me. I have to be honest, but it really didn't. I was kind of surprised myself, and pleasantly.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really good to hear.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
I think that's what everybody wants, isn't it? And it's sad that you have to have health issues to get to that point, I suppose. But it does often seem to be the way that a lot of people we speak to, they've been through loss and grief, and that's what's made them more accepting of others or themselves, or they've got this amazing, view of the world. And, you two are both in jobs where you help people a lot. It's made you very caring, very outward looking, probably because of, what you've been through. If you'd been Superman, you might not have done the same job.
Yeah. Do you talk about the health challenges of things? Because for those that don't know you so well, a view of you might be that you are a very manly man. You like sport, you like beer, you've got a great sense of humour. But then clearly inside there are sort of vulnerabilities and parts that you've had to come to terms with yourself. So has that been an easy story for you through the years of thinking, well, I like to do all the outgoing extrovert stuff, but then there is a gentle, softer side as well?
Yeah, it's. I guess there's a complicated answer to that. Really, I guess I had renal failure from birth. I was born with I had a polyp on my kidney found when I was 2 weeks old, so they had to remove that kidney. And then the kidney I had remaining had something called reflux, where essentially the waste was washing back into the kidney. It wasn't draining through the urethra, and it basically diseased that kidney to the point where it was unsalvageable. It was most of my childhood I grew up with very minimal renal function. They kept telling me I'd be on a machine at some point in my early teens. However, it lasted till I was about 18, and then I was quite poorly for 2 years, and then almost 20 years ago I had a transplant, 2004, and ever since then I've been living with that.
Yeah. And so have you found it easy or hard or somewhere in between to be open about your own challenges with people that you meet for the first time or friends that you're getting to know and sort of finding support in that? Is that a very private thing, or is it something you're quite open about?
I think I am known as being a bit of an oversharer, to be honest. I think I get that from my mother, but I'm a very open person, maybe to a fault at times, perhaps. I think there are times when you do need to keep things privately and close to your chest, but generally I'm quite open to speaking about my situation. I find, particularly when I'm around people who maybe are experiencing their own difficulties, because I think it can really help with that empathy side of things. because I have experienced lots of different challenges in life because of my health. And so I think it does give me a really good perspective on life, and when I meet people. And so I try and use it positively where I can.
It must be a nightmare as a social worker, because you're coming across every day stories of great need, of despair, where you're feeling and empathising. You must carry some weight.
Yeah, it can feel like that. I think what Laura said about her Herman being gratitude, I think that's really true. I think I am quite a grateful person in terms of I realise life could be a lot more difficult for me if I had a certain perspective. But because I think I'm quite a grateful person also, and sort of try and see the positive and humour in most things, I try and bring that positivity into the situations that I go into. But that is difficult, when you walk into situations that are particularly sort of dark or bleak, maybe.
I think there'll be a lot of people out there who find it quite scary, the idea of meeting somebody when you've got to explain your medical history or you've got things going on physically that you need to tell them about. What would you want to say to people who are in that place, and what has sort of helped you in your relationship and your marriage when it comes to sort of navigating these things together?
I think maybe what you'd initially said, so humour has been very much part of our regular conversations when there's been different health challenges, just trying to sort of see the lighter or the funny side, even in really difficult situations. I think that has been both of our defaults before we met each other, and so then it was kind of natural that we would sort of continue with that.
I think really just sort of not being scared to actually have those deep conversations with one another. I think when sort of anxieties arise around health, I think it's important that you don't let those things get a grip of you, and that you do have those people around you who you can go and speak to. I think there was certainly a period in my life in my 20s where I perhaps didn't know how to deal with some of the more difficult feelings, and I would maybe shut myself away and sort of hide behind sort of distracting myself with various things, computer games or just, mechanisms of distraction. But actually they weren't helpful. And so now when we have maybe difficult times or challenges with our health, we do talk about those things. And then maybe after we've processed those things together, we do then sort of see maybe it does feel a bit lighter. And then the humour comes along on, after that.
What you said at the start there about not being afraid to have those deeper conversations. Claire and I have been married now for, I always get the figure wrong, but it's 19 years. And I still find it, and we love deep conversation, but I still find at times that I really have to almost like, okay, we're going in, this isn't going to be easy, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but I know the other side of it, so I know for sure it will be a good thing to do, but it's never fun in the process, is it? Sometimes it's not fun in the process, that you make yourself have those conversations, realising that this is going to be healthy for us, and we'll feel lighter at the end. So it's remarkable that, you're able, even quite early on in your marriage, that you're both realising, get over the fear of having this conversation, because it will do us good.
I don't know if that's even necessarily been a choice. I think we've probably, because it's something that we've lived with sort of month to month, and different things have even happened in the last year and a half in terms of our health, you can't really put things off. And so sometimes when it's like so at the forefront of your daily life, you sort of have to have those conversations. But as you say, once you have been open and discussed, then you know that it's well worth it in terms of when you've got to the other side, that you do get a lot closer, you do build that trust, and it does really just help to build your marriage, really.
Marriage then, Jonathon, for you, and I use your full name Jonathon like
All
Laura
right.
does, respecting Laura's use of your name rather than calling you John. I mean, one of the things two things that stood out from your marriage that we had the joy of being at your wedding, on your wedding day, being at the ceremony, being at the reception, hearing the speeches, that there was this common theme of humour and gratitude, just how thankful you both are. I think it came across certainly in your speech, Jonathon. Lily said John. But then also, your friends and family that spoke, that we met, that did speeches as well, for them, they were sort of so thankful that both of you had found each other because of what you were able to do for each other, which was just lovely. For you then, in your marriage, what's sort of your vision? What's your hope for the future of, this is who I want to be in my marriage as a husband? This is a big question, but do you have like designs on, this is the person I'm wanting to be and to spend every day being more like this? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think the thing that I want the most for my marriage is, so if I kind of flip that question slightly, so I always wanted someone in my life who could support me and be there to help push me on in life and help me sort of see my dreams and visions come to pass. But I desperately want my wife's visions and dreams and hopes to come to pass also. And so my goal as a husband, and what I hope I can do, and hope I am doing, is that I want to sort of be. I want to be Laura's biggest chairperson, if you like, to sort of see her fulfill her hopes, dreams, and ambitions in life, and to help her to achieve those things. That's what I want to do.
Brilliant.
That's why I give you a cheeky side glance. Listening?
We need to work on that. Yeah.
Chris is my biggest criticiser.
And a cheerleader.
Yeah, and cheerleader.
I've
that's
perfected
right.
both.
And cheerleader.
It's called constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Great. Knowing the pair of you as we do, we've talked about hope and love, but faith is such a major element as well for you both. It's something much bigger at play in your lives, in your marriage, individually and together. Is it possible just to summarise what having a shared Christian faith, what difference that's made for you together and individually?
I think certainly before we met, it was probably, for me, it was the most important thing. I wanted to find someone who shared the same faith as me. And so that was quite important that, Laura went to church and we both believed in God. And I'd certainly say that for myself and for both of us, that sort of we glean a lot of hope from our faith. And we feel like God sort of forms a foundation of our relationship and for our life. And so if we've just found that through our faith, we've been able to sort of tackle so many different hurdles that perhaps would be so much more difficult without that faith. So it's fundamental, really, and important to us.
I think sort of having health conditions makes you realise that you're not always in control, that you're not infallible, and your kind of need for something beyond yourself. And I think sort of trusting God through these different sort of challenges has been huge for us. So just knowing that actually we don't need to be in control, we can trust that he has the best for us and that he can bring us through things. And just sort of having that belief that it's not all on us, I think, has been a huge source of like comfort and reassurance, and just sort of taking that pressure off.
Sometimes the faith that you talk about is criticised as being a crutch, but it's almost like, and we need that and we want that. It's our choice to have that support, to have faith, to have hope, love, sort of from heaven.
Yeah, I think it just brings a different perspective, doesn't it? Because we're all human, we've all got different issues, and for us to assume that we can just sort of do everything in our own strength, I think it kind of, when you have health problems, just proves that that's not always possible. And so it just, brings about that need for God in our lives.
So there you have it. Thank you, Jonathon and Laura, for talking so openly about how you navigate the curveballs that life throws at you.
And thank you for listening. We're so grateful for you. Not just because you listen to this podcast, but because if you are, you're trying to learn about grief and loss and you're interested in the stories of others. You know the power and the impact that testimony can have on the lives of others, and that makes you very special. I spoke to someone the other day for an hour and I learned a lot about them. Lovely person. But they didn't ask a single question about me. It's sad that too often these are the people we meet in life. Let's not be these people. Let's ask about people's lives. Let's have conversations like this one in person. Sometimes it can literally save lives.
Maybe you know someone that's struggling right now. Maybe it's a health issue, a financial one, a relationship breakdown, job stress, parenting anxiety, bereavement. Well, we have 2 brilliant ideas to help you practically with that. You could share an episode with them, show them a story of someone else going through something similar, so they know they're not alone and that you want to help. Or you can send them a Herman, and there's more about all of that on our website, thesilentwhy.com. Now we're finishing this episode with a quote from the artist and poet Bridget Nicole.
People who love you for who you are and not for what you can do for them are the best kind of people.